If money feels confusing, it is not because you are broken. It is because you were never handed a simple operating system. So let me offer you one, starting with a blunt truth I learned early in life. Most people are not bad with money. They are simply running their household without a system. And when you run anything without a system, the leaks do not feel dramatic day to day. They feel like normal life. Until one day you look up and realize you've been working for years and you still feel fragile. And if you have felt that way, I understand it, as I have watched it happen to friends, employees, and plenty of families who are doing their best. But I have also seen the opposite, where ordinary people build extraordinary stability when they do a few simple things consistently for a long time. So here is what I want to give you. Not a perfect plan, but a workable plan. A 90-day reset that turns your finances into something that behaves like a well-run business. Where in business, you do not guess your revenue, you count it. You do not hope your costs stay reasonable. You measure them, and you do not wait for an emergency to discover you are undercapitalized. You keep reserves, and that is the mindset for the next 90 days, where you are going to become the chief executive of your own financial life. And like every CEO, you will do 3 jobs well. You will know your numbers, you will build stability, and you will allocate capital with discipline. So now, I will walk you through 12 weeks, where each week has one primary job you can do in a couple of focused hours. And the goal is not to feel busy, but to build a machine that keeps working. After your motivation fades, beginning with week 1, the honesty week, where before we fix anything, we need to see what is true by pulling up your last 3 months of bank and credit card statements, not 1 month, because 1 month can lie to you. But 3 months tells you the pattern, and your job is to categorize the spending into housing, food, transportation, debt payments, subscriptions, entertainment, health, and a category I call silent leaks. The small purchases that don't feel dangerous but add up fast. And do this without self-hate, because this is not a morality test, it is accounting. And a good business does not insult itself for having expenses. It simply asks which expenses create value and which are waste. And when you finish, write down 2 numbers, your monthly take-home income and your average monthly spending. And if spending is higher than income, you have identified the exact reason you feel stressed. And if income is higher, you have identified the exact fuel we will use to build wealth. Then moving to week 2, the cleanup week, where in week 1 you found the leaks, and in week 2 you plug the easiest ones first by canceling anything you do not use, negotiating what you can like insurance, phone plans, and internet plans, because most companies will lower a bill if you ask, counting on you not asking. Then take one category and cut it deliberately for 30 days, not forever, just 30 days, because it is much easier to keep a promise for 30 days than for a lifetime. And at the end of week 2, you should have freed up some cash flow. Even $50 a month matters, not because $50 changes your life overnight, but because it proves you can control the direction of your money. Then week 3 is the automation week. Because when people tell me they will save whatever is left, I know what happens next. What is left becomes zero as life expands to consume the whole paycheck. So you must pay yourself first by setting up a high-yield savings account for short-term money you may need within 1 to 5 years. Then setting up automatic transfers so that on payday a percentage moves without you thinking about it. As automation does 2 things. It removes decision fatigue and it protects you from your future self on a tired day. And if you only do one thing in this entire plan, make it this. Make saving automatic. Because a system beats willpower, then week 4 is the consumer debt week, where high-interest debt is a tax you volunteered for without realizing the cost, and credit card debt in particular can turn a small mistake into a long sentence. So write down each debt, the balance, the interest rate, and the minimum payment. Then choose a payoff strategy, either the smallest balance first method because it creates momentum, or the highest interest first method because it saves the most money. And either can work, as the right method is the one you will follow. Then make it practical by increasing your payment. By a small amount you can sustain. Even an extra $50 or $75 a month can shorten the payoff timeline and reduce total interest dramatically, and then automate that payment so the debt begins to die quietly in the background. Then week 5 is the emergency fund week, because most financial stress is not about luxury, but about surprise, like a car repair, a medical bill, a job change, or an unexpected flight. So we build a buffer. And if you have no emergency fund, aim for your first $1,000, as that number matters psychologically because it turns I have nothing into I have a base. And if you already have $1,000, your goal becomes 3 to 6 months of essential expenses. Not your perfect lifestyle, but your essential lifestyle, including rent or mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, insurance, and minimum debt payments. And this fund should sit in a safe place, ideally earning interest, as you are not trying to get rich with it, but trying to stop being fragile. Then week 6 is the investing setup week, where over a very long period, ownership in productive businesses has done well, which is a polite way of saying stocks have historically been one of the strongest wealth-building engines. But the real secret is not picking genius stocks, but consistency and time. So if your employer offers a retirement plan, learn how to use it and contribute regularly. And if there is a match, understand that it is part of your compensation, a raise you only get if you participate. And if you do not have a workplace plan, you can still invest through other accounts, as the exact wrapper matters less than the habit of low-cost, diversified investing held for a long time, which tends to beat frantic activity. And remember this, you do not invest money you need next month. You invest money you can leave alone, because investing punishes impatience and rewards endurance. Then week 7 is the growth week, where you can only cut costs so far because there is a floor, but your income does not have a ceiling. So in week 7, you choose one lever that increases your earning power, like a skill that pays more in the market, a certification, a project you can use to ask for a raise, or a side service you can sell on weekends. Not 10 ideas, but one idea you will actually execute, writing down what you will do, when you will do it, and how you will measure progress. Because I have seen people transform their finances not by living like monks, but by becoming more valuable. And in the long run, value creation is the cleanest path to higher income. Then week 8 is the target week, where now that you have a basic system, you set a clear savings goal for the rest of the year, a real number, a deadline, and a reason. Whether it is an emergency fund milestone, a down payment, debt freedom by a certain month, or funding a business idea, and then translate the goal into a monthly amount. So when the goal becomes a monthly number, it stops being a fantasy and becomes a plan. Then week 9 is the credit card week, where credit cards are tools that, in the right hands, are efficient, but in the wrong hands are expensive, so you must know yourself. And if you can pay the full balance every month and automate the payment, then a credit card can provide rewards and build credit history. But if you carry a balance, the interest rate is a quiet predator that eats future options. So the rule I like is simple. If you cannot pay it in full this month, do not buy it on a card. And that rule is not about deprivation, but about refusing to borrow at punishing rates for things that fade quickly. Then week 10 is the net worth week, where a business tracks its balance sheet, and so should you, as net worth is just assets minus liabilities, not a scoreboard for ego, but a dashboard for decisions. So add up your cash, your investments, and the value of big assets. Subtract your debts, and that number is your current position, tracking it monthly or quarterly, so you will be surprised how motivating it is to see the line move in the right direction, even slowly. Then week 11 is the review week, where we go back to spending because the first review changed your awareness, but awareness fades. So look at your spending for the last 2 months. Compare it to the baseline from week 1 and ask if you plugged the leaks, if new leaks appeared, and if your automatic transfers happened as planned, because this is how you keep a system from drifting, not needing perfection, but periodic correction. Then week 12 is the stretch week, where now we aim higher with 1-year, 5-year, and 10-year goals, not because you can predict the future, but because direction matters. As a 1-year goal might be saving $10,000. Life is like a snowball. The important thing is finding wet snow and a really long hill. That $20,000 is the first tight snowball core you have packed together. If you don't have this core, no matter how much snow you scatter on the hill, it will just be blown away by the wind. Using the rule of 72, if you put this $20,000 into a standard index fund with an annual return of 7 to 10%, your money will double every 7 to 10 years. $20,000 becomes $40,000, then $80,000, $160,000, $320,000, $640,000. During this process, you don't even need to deposit a single extra penny. By the time you retire, this initially insignificant $20,000 will turn into a huge sum. This is why I say that before you save $20,000, do not care about the rate of return. Many young people with only a few $1,000s are obsessed with options, cryptocurrencies, or junk stocks that promise to multiply 10 times. They feel their principal is too small, so a 10% return is meaningless. They want a 500% return. This is suicidal logic. Precisely because you look down on that 10%, you take the risk of a 100% loss. And as a result, your principal goes to zero, forcing you back to the starting line. Mark my words. Before $20,000, your primary task is defense, accumulation, and squirreling away every acorn like a squirrel. The importance of principal far outweighs the rate of return. But once you have packed this snowball and placed it on the hill, the rules of gravity change. Before, gravity was hindering you from climbing up. Now, gravity starts helping you roll down. This is the turning point from being human-driven to capital-driven. We now arrive at the most dangerous and darkest chapter, the Great Filter. In the Fermi paradox, the Great Filter refers to a threshold in the evolutionary process that is extremely difficult to cross, where the vast majority of life forms go extinct. In the process of wealth accumulation, $20,000 is that great filter. Statistics tell us that many ordinary people have actually had $20,000 in savings at some point in their lives, maybe even more than once. But why do the vast majority end up broke? Because they fail to pass through this filter. This is a brutal psychological trap. When you have $20,000 in your hand, the temptation you face is 10,000 times greater than when you had no money. This is the reward trap. You worked hard for 3 years, eating instant noodles, buying no new clothes, and finally saved up $20,000. At this moment, your brain generates a strong psychology of compensation, telling you that you are a rich person now and should reward yourself. Coincidentally, your 10-year-old car breaks down and you walk past a dealership and see a shiny new SUV. The down payment is exactly $20,000. The devil in your heart says, "Buy it! I have money." This is the moment the filter activates. Most people fall right here. They sign the check and drive that new car home, feeling incredibly proud, as if they have succeeded. But what I see is a person who has personally killed the golden goose that just hatched. That car is not an asset. It is a liability. The second you drive it off the lot, it depreciates by 20%. Even worse, you have blown your newly established core of compound interest to smithereens, taken on a new car loan, higher insurance, and higher gas costs. The gravity well opens up again and sucks you back in. And this time, because you have tasted the pleasure of a new car, you may never get another chance to climb out. Aside from your own desires, there is an external force trying to pull you down. The crab bucket effect. If you put one crab in a bucket, it can crawl out. But if you put a group in, whenever one tries to crawl out, the crabs underneath grab it with their claws and drag it back down. When you save $20,000, start refusing meaningless consumption and begin talking about investing instead of gossip, your friends, colleagues, and even relatives will feel uncomfortable. They will mock you, not because you are doing something wrong, but because your self-discipline highlights their indulgence. Subconsciously, they don't want you to pass through that filter because it means you will enter a world they cannot reach. To pass this filter, you have to become a little weird, get used to loneliness, and learn to enjoy the thrill of watching the numbers in your bank account grow rather than the thrill of watching your closet fill up. So the rest of your life has more peace. And if you fall off for a week, do not quit, return to the system, because the market punishes panic and life punishes quitting, and the best time to start was years ago. But the second best time is today. So begin with the truth in week 1 and let the rest follow with a final reminder to keep it simple. Automate what matters. Avoid high-interest debt. Invest patiently and let time do what time does. You will be forcibly liquidated. Second, do not touch complex derivatives. Anything that promises high short-term returns is usually a trap. Options, futures, high-frequency trading, those are slaughterhouses for professionals, and you would enter as a lamb to be slaughtered. Third, do not buy a house at this stage. $20,000 is too stretched for a down payment. If you buy a house now, you will be burdened with a heavy mortgage. Your cash flow will be locked dead, and that refusal power you just gained will instantly vanish. You will turn back into a slave to the bank, afraid to quit your job or take risks. Be patient. $100,000 is the next milestone. When you reach it, the roar of the compound interest machine will be too loud to ignore. But for now, put on your bulletproof vest, deploy your soldiers, and strive to increase your own value. In our final chapter, We must discuss not the numbers in your bank account, but your quality of life as a human being. When you save $20,000, you might feel disappointed because you look in the mirror and realize you have no luxury watch or fancy car. But I want to tell you a secret that most people overlook. This money is paying you an invisible dividend called a low cortisol life. Cortisol is the stress hormone. When you have no money and are worried about next month's rent, your cortisol levels are chronically elevated, slowly poisoning your body. It causes insomnia, anxiety, makes you lose your temper with your family, and crashes your immune system. The stress of poverty is a chronic disease. But when you possess that $20,000 bulletproof vest, even though you haven't bought a single thing, your cortisol levels drop. You sleep better at night, you are more patient with your children, and you argue less with your spouse about money. This invisible health dividend is worth even more than the $20,000 itself. I always say money cannot buy happiness, but money can buy away a lot of unhappiness. That first $20,000 buys away exactly those nightmares that wake you up in the middle of the night. Many people think I am happy because I possess billions, but that's wrong. Even if I only had $20,000 right now, I would still be happy, because $20,000 is enough to buy my favorite hamburgers, enough to let me live in a warm house, and most importantly, enough to let me do the work I love. This leads to the final piece of philosophical advice. Do not let money become your master. Before $20,000, money is your master, and you must obey it, doing jobs you dislike and enduring bosses you can't stand. But after $20,000, the relationship reverses. You become the master, and money becomes the tool. If you save this money, just so one day you can splurge like a nouveau riche, then you will never be truly wealthy. You're just a poor person holding some cash. If you save this money to win control over your own time, then even if you only have $20,000 in your account, you are a wealthy person. We started from that dark gravity well, discussing the difficulty of the first $20,000. We talked about the psychological shift and the refusal power it gives you. We talked about the compound interest machine and how that core of wet snow begins to roll. We talked about the great filter and why you must resist the temptation of consumerism. And finally, we gave you a specific blueprint on how to put on your bulletproof vest and deploy your soldiers to conquer that first $100,000. You see, all of this, the fulcrum that can change your entire destiny, is actually just that meager $20,000. It sounds so small, but in the eyes of those who understand, it carries the weight of a mountain. If you haven't reached this number yet, don't lose heart. Ignore those showing off their wealth on social media. That is noise. Focus on your own feet. I don't want this to be just another piece of entertainment that you watch and forget. I want to issue a challenge. If you are serious, if you truly want to climb out of that gravity well, write down in the comment section your current status and what you are prepared to sacrifice to save this $20,000, whether it's giving up coffee, not buying new shoes, or starting a side hustle. Write it down. This is a contract, not with me, but with your future self. When the day comes that you actually save that $20,000, be it 3 years or 5 years from now, please come back to this video and reply to yourself, I did it. By then, you will discover that you haven't just changed your savings, you have changed the trajectory of your entire family's destiny. The game has started. Now, go win your first round.